Hi, this is Don Debelak. You've reached the second video in our series, Creating an Introduction Plan, which is talking about how inventors can make a path or a plan to get their product to market. This particular presentation is about private label, pursuing the private label option for your path to market. Now, if you've listened to some of our other videos, you know that I like private label for inventors because it cuts their risk and makes it much easier for them to get investors and marketing our manufacturing partners to pick up quite a bit of the cost of the introduction. It cuts everybody's risk and it also gives the inventor a chance to get his product out in a big way and make his cut on a pretty large amount of sales, although his cut's going to be smaller. So there's a lot of advantages for inventors who choose the private label path. It's a fast track path to market. Marketing and sales is the most important thing in getting your product out there. And if you pick a private label partner, they're in the market, they have a sales group, they have an organization, they can get your product out faster than everyone else. And if you have strong partners, you're going to find that they can provide needed input that you have and how to package your product, maybe how to features to add or to drop, and other considerations that'll make your product as marketable as possible. It's much easier to get investors with a strong partner, so everyone's worried about will the product sell? Well, if you have a private label partner, you make the best case that your product is really going to sell. And same point manufacturers, for as far as manufacturers putting up money to help support your product or maybe giving you extended terms or amortized tooling costs, they're going to be much more willing to do all of that if you have a strong marketing partner, which you can get in private label. Of course, you're picking up marketing expertise. It's the quickest way to get to the market in a big way, and not something to be overlooked. It helps you maintain your ownership position. You still own your product. You still have control. Most of these other methods, if you take on investors or whatever, you don't maintain the same ownership position you do with private label. Of course, you have disadvantages too with private label. Your piece of the profits is much less. I mean, basically, you're going to be looking at a 15 to 20% um, profit on each sale rather than you could have 30 or 40%. Sometimes you're down to 10%, but of course, you don't have the administrative cost and other costs that you would in selling on your own. So, in the end, though, you do end up making probably two-thirds of the profits you could make otherwise. You run the risk the private label partner might run out and develop their own replacement product. Your private label partner has got a lower margin too, and sometimes they like to move on their own to kind of pick up those sales. You really need to work with your patents and legal documents and make sure they're very firm in order to prevent that from happening. You can't really control what they're doing as far as selling the product. You know, you can have input, but you won't always get all the input you want. You can't count on the private label partner to give you all the market input. So sometimes what's happening is they're going to see that there's another product that's necessary, or they're going to find that your product needs quite a bit few more features that they can work on. Well, rather than give that feedback to you, they might just take that feedback to come out with their own product. These are the steps of the private label agreement. Now, each one of these steps is also going to have a subsequent slide that we're going to go into a little bit more in detail. But the first step is make sure you have manufacturing covered. Basically, you're responsible for manufacturing. The private label partner signs the agreement. He's going to want to start getting products probably within 2 to 3 months so that he can start selling it and put it into his marketing campaign. So you just can't afford to sign a private label agreement and then just go out and try to find a manufacturer. You need to explore the different manufacturers, find some that are somewhat interested, and at least have them ready to come back to once you have a firmer arrangement with your private label partner. You need to identify and prioritize prospects. That means you need to find companies that are out there where you think you have a real good chance for a private label deal. Nobody likes it if you go out and shop your product to everybody in the marketplace. You're going to find they're not very interested. You need to really kind of be very exclusive and just go after one company first and really put all your resources into that. And only if they don't do it do you go to a second. Once everybody knows you've got the product out, you really lose a lot of your marketing advantage. Preparing a mock-up package with a prospect's logo, very important, because the package is what sells the product. People are interested in seeing it in the package, and they always get excited seeing a product with their logo on it. Set your price. Now, the margins are thin in private label, so you need to have a price that you stick to. You don't have the flexibility you might have in licensing or selling the product on your own, or even a joint venture. You've got to hold your price so that you don't end up getting just 2 or 3% profit. And everybody's going to be coming after you on pricing because margins are all around. So set that price and hold firm. Now, once you have your prospects and you want to really network. One of the things, you might have 3 or 4 prospects, because now you want to network and find a salesperson or a marketing manager or an independent sales rep who works for the company to take your product to the management and really get it in there. One of the things you're going to find out is that going into a company, making a presentation cold almost never works. Instead, what you really want to do is have somebody on the inside who can promote the product for you. You want to prepare a presentation which is going to be made to top management or the engineering. Then when you get their interest, you want to sign an MOU, which is sort of a temporary agreement until the final agreement can be signed. An MOU is really good because it gives you the support you need to get the product, a commitment that you can take back to your manufacturers and investors and show that things are really moving along. Going back, as I said before, we're going to each one of these points a little more detail. Make sure you have manufacturing covered. Now, you're responsible for manufacturing. You're responsible for having a vendor, and the private label partner is going to expect you to produce product 2 to 3 months after you go ahead. And you might also need to have financing lined up if the manufacturer won't cover all the costs of tools, inventory, or cash flow to cover the terms, because you might have to purchase inventory, in month 1 and not actually collect money for 6 months later. So now this is not like the steps that we're going through here are not just all exclusively one after another. You're going to be working with the manufacturer at the same time you're prioritizing prospects, and at the same time you're contacting networks. So you have to keep all 3 kind of moving together at the same time until you can really reach an agreement. Otherwise, what's going to happen is if you don't work them all at the same time, you're going to end up just taking too long to respond to every situation. If a private label partner signs an MOU, he's not going to wait 3 or 4 months for you to find a manufacturing partner. You've got to have things kind of moving along as you go. And at the same time, if you're working with the manufacturer, you can't get him to sign an agreement and then take 6 months to find a private label partner. That also makes you look bad. So to identify and prioritize prospects, which kind of companies are most interested in a private label agreement? Well, one characteristic is when your product presents a more complete package for them. For example, if they just sell, a dental product, let's say you've made a dental scaler, you're going to look at people who are selling dental handpieces or drills or other equipment to the dental office or to the dental market. Then when your product comes in, and if you give your product, the company, a more complete package, selling your product doesn't just get the company the sales from your product, but it also helps them expand their market presence and get more customers. This is a very big concern with companies, is if they're looking at a private label, that you help their entire line. The more you help their entire line, the better they are, more likely they are to actually do a private label agreement. You want to go with companies that specialize in your target marketplace. So in other words, don't go with a company who's trying to get into the market for the first time. Now, companies with small engineering staff or who already buy private label companies are very good prospects, because what those companies have that's really beneficial to you is they have a need for products. They can't put out new products. Sometimes these companies, who are usually smaller tier companies, also are slipping behind in the marketplace. They're very anxious to have a new private label products where they're really going to have a chance to get the product out. Don't overlook large distributors or integrators that also have a large market presence where you can provide that same advantage of a more complete package that lets them get more customers. Now you want to prepare a mock-up package with the prospect's logo. You want to do this before you talk to even the salesman or you talk to the marketing people. It really is a big sales point because they see the product and first impressions are everything, and having a good first impression with a product package really helps you sell the product. Have the benefit on the package, really have that package work, and use the prospect's typical coloring format. But use a professional, and this is where, in the even 10 years ago, before all these freelance sites came up, you really had to spend a lot of money for a package designer or any of the other professions. But with the freelance sites, you're allowed to put your product up, tell how much you'll bid, and you can really get some top-notch people. Some of them will be young who are really anxious to prove themselves and have, build up their portfolio. Others are retired guys who just want to kind of keep active in the marketplace. But try to get a professional, make a really strong package. You'll find that they're really worth whatever money you'll have to spend for them, but the package will help give that initial wow factor you really need in order to get a private label deal. Set your price. As I mentioned, the margins are thin on all three sides. The manufacturer, you, and the private label partner all are taking less money. You will only get a margin of about 20% on the sales price, and usually you don't get that much. It might be more like 10 or 15%, but still it's a lot better than what you might get for a license, which might be 2, 3, or 4%. The private label partner, however, and the manufacturer too are all going to want to ease their margin up also. So what you have to do is you have to set that price and be firm, and you have to be able to show what your margins are. And you need that set price from the manufacturer so you can say to the private label partner, look, this is all I'm getting. I have to get some profit, and they'll accept that, but you have to be firm on your negotiations here. You've got to be prepared to show that everyone is sacrificing margin. Otherwise, everyone's going to be pushing against you, and it's not that hard for you to end up with only a 2 or 3% margin, which is definitely not what you're going to be willing to do because you still have a substantial amount of risk in a private label agreement that you don't have in a licensing agreement. So you want to have a higher margin. So now that we've located the prospects, and you might have located them by going to trade shows, you might have located them by talking to distributors or local sales reps to get a feel for what companies really fall into a category where your product is going to help them quite a bit. Now, you don't want to go to the engineering department. You don't want to go to top management right away. If you do that, there's just going to be a lot of negatives. What you want to do is get somebody on the inside who's going to promote your product and really push it forward. And usually a local sales rep, a company rep, if they sell direct, or a marketing person are by far the best people to take your product and push it into the company and really make a deal for you. Now, if you're asking, well, why would a guy want to do this or a gal want to do this? Why do they want to go out and take a chance to help me out? Well, think about it like this. That local salesperson only wins if he brings a product to the company. He looks like a go-getter. He looks like he's on the ball. He looks like he's looking out all the time for how to make the company better. Now, all that he needs from your product is it to be a reasonably good product that everyone's going to say, well, that's a pretty good idea. Now, even if they don't go ahead with your idea, the salesperson still looks good, or the marketing person still looks good. Now, if they go ahead, then they even look better. So there's a lot of incentive for that local marketing salesperson to want to help you promote that product within the company, provided the product has really got good sales potential. Then when you're going to go to top management, now they're always balancing out conflicting interests, and they're going to have people in engineering who won't want to take on a private label product. They want to introduce their own products. And the manufacturing sometimes throws resistance up because they want a higher margin, not a lower margin. But marketing will almost always rule in companies that will take a private label product. So really work with the manufacturer or the marketing people in order to take a product in. Again, trade shows, industry meetings, associations, or just calling companies up and seeing your local salesperson. It's easy to meet an inside contact, and they really will help you get the product into the marketplace. Now you've got to prepare a presentation. You want your presentation to be short, 10 minutes maximum. Now, one of the things inventors always do wrong is they go with these big long presentations and think the longer it is and the more points they make, the better off it is. But the fact is, the companies are looking for a big wow factor. The longer your presentation, the more you're presenting things that aren't that big of a wow factor, and the more you're taking away from the impact your product had in its initial presentation. So keep it short, just why the product is needed. Again, really focus on your positive focus groups you've had or other market tests, things that show the product will really sell. Hopefully you've got a prototype or you have a prototype that is uh, almost ready, but make these prototypes that they're almost commercially ready. They have to look like and act like a real product. They don't have to be perfect in every sense, but um, I go back always to this point that the inventor always sees the product as the end. After it's all fully developed and everything is perfect, everybody else just sees whatever you've got now. So make sure the prototype you show is really looks like it's almost commercial ready. You should go with your product packaging, and you might talk about other packaging. Packaging is important, but try to go with that prototype package with their name on it. That will really help you. Got to list the price you're willing to sell for and the price, if you've got backup, of what the product can sell for at retail or to the end user. An MOU is a memorandum of understanding. If you go on the internet and just put down sample memorandums of understanding for private label agreements, you'll get memorandums that come up. And then you can kind of read them over and get a sense of what a memorandum is like. But these are non-binding agreements. They include some confidentiality clauses, which is very helpful to you, and it lays out the framework of what both parties' intent is. The main reason you want to sign an MOU, though, is it shows a commitment on the manufacturer's or the private label partner's side. That commitment is what you're going to take then and show to your manufacturing partners, investors, to kind of keep them ready to go. They're going to see that once a company signs a private label agreement, it's not binding. It doesn't mean they're going to go ahead. But most companies won't sign these agreements unless they have a serious interest in your product. So that MOU helps you know the company is interested, knows they have a level of commitment, knows they're going to do a certain amount of work, and it allows you to go back to your manufacturer and your investors, if you have them, and show them that you're really proceeding and that things are going well and it looks like the deal's going to go through. Then you just have to have a final agreement, and really, depending on the size of your private label agreement, don't just jump and go with whatever the manufacturer presents to you. This is one of the really great things about the internet is you can get sample agreements for just about everything that you can read over and see what the clauses are, see what people put in for protection. And find yourself a helpful business lawyer. I mean, usually the Small Business Development Center or SCORE can help you find a lawyer who will work with you without charging you a lot of money. You want the private label agreement to be as long as possible, but you want the exclusive part of the agreement to be 2 to 3 years. So if you're doing a private label, fine, the company can have an exclusive for 2 years or maybe 3 years to take your product out, and you won't compete with them. But after that 3-year period, you really want to have the ability to start marketing this product on your own. It can be a sticking point, but basically, if you don't do that, it's really hard for your company to keep growing. Also, talk about mutually agreed to redesigns. So, in other words, the product for future improvements or generations 2, 3, and 4, you want that in there that you and the company will agree to that redesign and you'll work together. this helps you. It's sort of a negative in that you won't have complete control over the future generations, but it's, on the other hand, it's a big plus because it prevents the company from actually redesigning the product and taking it out on their own without you. So this is the private label agreement. As you know, I'm a big fan of private label. I think it really cuts your risk and gets you out in the marketplace and puts you in a much better position for your second product to go out on your own. You'll know a lot more of the ropes, you'll have a financial base, you'll have a proven market success, and you'll find every step of the process is much easier to do.